Hello everybody, welcome to the Spacemen from Pluto podcast. I'm your host this week, Ben. Joining me as always,
Dan,
James,
and Christian.
And today, guys, we're bringing all the new stuff. Things have actually come out. Can you believe it? It's all new movies. Yeah, the podcast, we finally got new stuff to talk about. This is great. We're going to be talking about A Quiet Place 2. And then later we're going to be talking about the first episode of Loki, even though by the time you watch the second episode has come out, we know. Sorry.
Probably the third episode.
Yeah. And maybe a few more things at the end. But first, I just want to read a little... we got a comment, right? And I wanted to read it. It's nothing too major. So for anyone that doesn't know, we've just got a new video out of a new series called I've Never Seen, where we've took a look at Pulp Fiction because James has never seen it, and to help, promote, we put the videos on Reddit. Sometimes we put it out on Reddit, and this particular post on Reddit has got a comment about James.
Oh God!
It was a matter of time.
It just made me chuckle. That's all. It just made me chuckle because this is the game we're in now, isn't it, guys? Where we're going to face criticism.
Yeah. Strangers can tell us that we're stupid on the internet.
Yeah. It's pretty simple. The guy's gone... He's gone... James is an idiot. Any cuts would ruin it. It's the perfect film. And it just made me chuckle. I just thought that was funny.
And this is by a Q Tarantino? Part of me wishes it had literally just been the sentence, James is an idiot.
Yeah, I know. I kind of wished it as well.
Oh, man, our first hate comment.
Yeah, pretty,
is it weird
really
that I kind of love it?
Yeah, I love it as well. I think it's great. I just thought, we're getting out there in the world. People are knowing who we are now. We're nearly famous, guys. We're getting there. We're getting there. We're getting the downloads, getting the views. So it's going to happen. We're in the public eye now. We're under scrutiny.
Anyway, should we talk about a film?
Well, I've got a question for you, Dan.
Oh Christ!
And I like that it's gonna become a thing. Dan, have you watched A Quiet Place 2?
Of course I've not.
But are you going to review it anyway?
Yes, I am.
So Dan, what did you think of A Quiet Place 2?
Yeah, what did you think of Quiet Place 2, Dan?
It was very quiet. Always. Well, I was thinking, guys. I mentioned this earlier to you in person. I was thinking, obviously you three have watched the film. Brilliant, well done. The reason why I didn't watch this film, it was mostly due to I've not seen the first one, and also these kinds of films, the monster type deal, doesn't really interest me that much. I feel like it's kind of played out. So maybe you guys can, you can talk about the film, what you liked, and all that kind of stuff. Also, try and convince me why should I go and watch this? I'm not into this type of film. What's good? Or maybe I shouldn't go and watch it because it's rubbish. I don't know.
My thing with these films is, Dan, both of them, I would recommend them to anyone, but I don't think I'd rave about them. Because I think they're good. They're really solid films. And I do think pretty much anyone can enjoy these films. But in general, I'm careful about raving about films. And I think if someone went, this is the best film ever, you've got to go see it, you'd be disappointed by that. But I do think everyone should try these films. They are good. They're really solid films.
I think when someone says to me, a popcorn movie, a fun time at the cinema, I think it is that in the best way. I think I agree with James. I think they're both really solid entertainment movies with good characters, a little bit of depth here and there, a bit of good filmmaking, good scenes and stuff, tension and things like that. So I've enjoyed both films. I really enjoyed the first one.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's as good. I don't know if the second one's better.
I was going to ask.
I don't know if it is because I've not seen the first one in a few years. Because they played their card in the first one, so they can't really do that again in this one.
What's the deal with it? Can you sort of explain? Is it like they sense sound, right?
Yeah, they're super sensitive to
quiet.
sound, and if you make any noise, they just attack noise.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But it's they will hear you from far away.
Yeah. Basically, they're kind of like the clickers from The Last of Us if you combine them with a smaller version of the Cloverfield monster.
Well,
They're
So-
the future Predator from Primeval.
and that's just the first comparison to The Last of Us, especially in part
Yeah.
2.
I was certainly getting a Last of Us vibe from the trailer, especially the scene with
This-
John Krasinski in the car and the driving
Oh,
away.
Oh,
and
mate.
the
even
second
more
film
so
just
part
turns
2.
into The Last of Us.
Yeah, it is The
halfway
Last
through.
of Us. But
dear.
I don't
Not it's not an
care.
awful thing.
Yeah.
No.
Like the first one especially, like it's kind of got quite a lot of plot holes, like especially to do with how the sound works or the lack of sound with the creatures. But I don't care. Like they detect sound, but if there's loads of sound, it's fine. So like
Yeah.
they go to a waterfall and it's fine. So it's like, well, just live next to the waterfall, and they don't, or make loads of sound, then it's fine.
Just
but I
put
don't
a
care.
siren down somewhere that's
Yeah.
constantly going off.
But
so
they
that,
break
yeah.
the siren. I don't know. You wouldn't want to live next to like that much noise constantly. That'd be a nightmare.
Yeah, but it's that or walk around quietly and get killed, James.
But they don't. They survive
But I
I-
also, well,
I think
not
that
all
would.
of them do.
until they don't.
I think logically it would make more sense for them to create some sort of barrier of sound around where they live. However, I think A, that would also be very time consuming, and B, it's way more interesting to watch them have to work around
Yes.
the fact that they can't make sound.
Absolutely, yeah. Because it's,
If
just,
they-
it's a movie. yeah,
Yeah.
you've got to have the movie has to happen.
And the thing that I think is really cool about it is it's like basically, Dan, the main thing about this family is their daughter is deaf, so they all know American Sign Language, and that's
Yeah.
kind of how they've got so far because they can communicate
Yeah.
without having to talk, which is really cool.
That's quite handy.
Yeah,
Literally
The-
handy.
Ah, I like it. Very nice. Very nice.
Thanks.
But the
everyone.
thing that I like about both the first one and the second one is every now and then it's just got these little bits. I'm like, you've really sat down and thought about what this world would be like if you couldn't talk. Like, there's just some really nice
Oh, yeah.
little details in there.
What, any examples?
You know, like we're just kind of have to do spoilers, aren't we? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always
So, like,
spoilers.
there's a bit in the second one, Dan, where one person attacks another person, and when they get close, they put a noose around their neck and tighten it, and then it's like covered in bells. So this person's now got like a bunch of jangly shit tied to them.
okay,
They
yeah.
can't get it off. And I thought that was a
Yeah.
really cool idea of like a way to attack someone.
Yeah, I thought
Yeah.
to go into the second one as well. I thought as a sequel, it works well in that. It was like in terms, especially the visual settings. It's like it's all new stuff. It's places
Yeah.
we'd not seen before in the first film. And there was like a factory
They-
set in, and there's the water.
They put a big emphasis on that early on because the way that they get around in the first film is they've sort of obtained bags and bags of sand and placed trails of sand down because, of course, bare feet walking on sand makes barely any noise. So they've just left trails of sand, and then this one starts with them hitting the end of where they'd put the sand up to sort of indicate, right, this is whole new area, whole new set of circumstances,
Right. I see.
and we aren't just it's not just going to be like same old hat, we're just repeating the same thing as the first one.
Yeah, you go on.
I saw one review being like, but you know, they're fine in their house. Why would they not stay there? Because the house is flooded.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
they can't stay there.
I thought I liked it as well because I didn't get from the trailer. I got the sense like they just leave the house and then they come across Cillian Murphy through chance, and I was like, well, that's hopefully that's not the case because I would say why would you leave the house even though it's flooded? But in the film, I got the sense of there's the scene where the daughter checks out the other beacon like Lord of the Rings style and sees where they are. I think they know that it's Cillian Murphy because we've seen in a flashback that's who it is. And so
How do you feel about that? That they already knew each other before all of this?
I liked it because I was going to say I
Okay.
like it. I like that they don't leave the house necessarily because it's flooded and we can never go back. They're leaving just to get help because they're in a dire situation. If everything had gone okay, I kind of foresaw Cillian would help them go back to the farm and they would rebuild it because
That's a
why
good
wouldn't
point.
you? But
Yeah.
other things transpired, like the daughter's plot line, that's prevented them from going back and their injuries and everything else. So I got the sense in the film, they're not just
Yeah.
leaving because the movie has to happen. They're leaving for a little bit and hopefully to come back.
well,
That's what I got from it.
Sort
Okay.
of Dan may have already interpreted this, and I am sorry I'm about to spoil the first film for you, probably.
I don't really care. It's fine.
But
Go for it.
one of the things I really liked about the story of this one was that it chose to focus more on the kids and their sort of dealing with their dad's passing, because, you know, end of the first film, big climactic scene, John Krasinski sacrifices himself to save his son and daughter, and I like that a big arc in this film is that Emily Blunt, as the mother, just had a newborn baby, still has 2 kids, and her husband, who was helping her survive, is gone, so she's going out there with her kids to be like, right, well, we need to find someone else who can help. We need 2 adults. But then the progression of the story is that the 2 kids are have learnt enough from their dad. They're very like their dad, especially the daughter. Well, yeah, the son.
I could not stand the son throughout this film.
That was
He
Emily
really
yeah.
wound me up.
Their plot line was a bit, especially a bit where he goes off on his own, it was a bit forced. And it was strange that Emily Blunt kind of doesn't need to be in the film. It's weird. She kind of gets it felt very much like, oh well, we've got to give her something to do. Although I didn't mind because she went off and got the gas canisters. I didn't mind that. But yeah, when the kid then leaves and goes upstairs and stuff, I was like, why are you?
But even then, like,
dumb.
when he, like, I know he stands in a bear trap, and I know it's got to hurt, but how far into this are you now? Like, you understand you can't just be screaming your head off like that.
But he
Like,
has just stood in a bear trap.
I think
I would have sympathy with you if Emily Blunt didn't manage to give birth without making that much noise.
she's an adult.
Nah, he really annoyed me in this film. And maybe he's supposed to. Maybe he's supposed to be that character that makes bad decisions, but
I'm surprised he kept his foot, to be honest.
I would have just lobbed it off,
I
left
thought
him
that was
there.
a goner. I thought his foot was a goner.
And I was really convinced that it was going to be a thing of he not killed, but like he accidentally ended up killing his like baby sister.
I thought
Brother? Is it a boy? I'm not sure. The baby.
I didn't
did they
think
specify?
I think they do. I've got a feeling it
It
is
was
a
a
boy
girl,
because I think they make a thing
boy.
of maybe it replaces the one that got absolutely wiped out in the first
Yeah,
one.
the 5-year-old that got wiped out at the beginning of the film.
Yeah, I just didn't think they would do it. They can't kill it.
I know, like, it's one of those things. Afterwards, it's like, yeah, of course they didn't. It's really dark.
yeah,
But
we didn't
watching it,
know
I was
that.
like, they might. Like, I wondered whether it was going to be a thing if she gets back to the furnace, opens it, and he's just there using the mask, or I thought
he
it was going to be a
dies.
thing. Maybe I thought it was going to be a thing if he didn't realise that the gas tank was out, so he just shut the box, and went, but my the baby will be fine in there, and then opens it and the baby's run out of oxygen.
Yeah,
But I was like,
yeah.
that'd be dark. I kind of respect it, but at the same time, I'm glad I didn't see a dead baby. So.
Yeah. And we've
We've
seen a
already
bunch in Zack Snyder movies.
I was going to say, we've already seen too many zombie babies,
Yeah.
so we don't need another, like, dead or dying infant in films that we've watched recently.
But as well, Dan, there is a plot line involving a young girl who has key information and a man who's a bit war-torn of the world with a greyish beard,
Oh, okay.
buttoned-up shirt, and they're wandering the wasteland together in hopes of a better future. I'm not
Really?
describing The Last of Us. I'm describing this movie, Quiet Place 2. Yeah, there is just Cillian Murphy and the daughter just go on a separate plot line, and it is shockingly similar to and they come across another group who are very freaky. I found them really unpleasant looking.
I think that's the only thing I'd say about this film that's a bit like, okay, as of such untapped sort of maybe potential and something to explore is the idea of, because when he says the people who are left aren't worth saving, like, show us more of that. But
Yeah.
I feel like we are getting a third film.
Oh,
And I feel like
definitely
that's
getting a
where
third
that stuff
movie.
comes in.
Definitely.
Yeah.
definitely. But even though it was The Last of Us, I did enjoy it.
I drew the parallels like pretty early on, and it didn't bother me. I was like, okay, it sort of weirdly gave me more faith in the possibility of this Last of Us TV show being good, because I saw that story that was essentially The Last of Us translated. It was, what if Ellie was deaf? And
Yeah.
that's about the only thing that changes. And they even have the whole, like, they go off. Cillian Murphy's very reluctant to go on this adventure. He's like, no, we need to go back to where it's safe. We can't just do it, the two of us. And she's like, no, we have to do this. We have to save the world. They go off together, find a group of less desirable people who are trying to kill them, manage to escape because they overcome these people with the creatures that are around, and then find a nice little settlement that is a wonderful place, and yes, we can all live here peacefully because the creatures can't get here because they can't swim. Oh wait, we've brought one with us in a boat.
It was a separate boat. It was a
separate boat.
Yeah,
Okay.
so and then you kind of just got to suspend your disbelief of this boat also just happened to wash up on shore with them, but
So, where are these creatures from? What's the deal?
space.
Space.
We didn't
Asteroid.
and part of me is I don't know if I like that, because in the first one, Dan, it opens in the apocalypse already. We don't know. They don't explain anything, and you don't get any explanation in this other than, so the opening scene is set beforehand, and it's the day it all kicks off, and you see asteroids like coming to Earth, and then the next thing you know, they're just here. So we don't know where they're from or anything like that. But part of me is just like, I don't think we needed it, but I still don't feel like it's been over-explained, so it's fine. That is a good opening scene, to be fair. I just enjoy spending time with John Krasinski being a dad, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
so
same.
I'm okay with it.
It's a very good opening scene, and I like that this film did have so many intersecting stories, both at the beginning and the end, because of course the dad and daughter end up split off from the mum and the two sons, and we have that back and forth between them surviving on day one, and then towards the end of the film we have Emily Blunt off fighting this creature on her own. By the way, I'm glad that they finally thought to use some form of falling water and sprinklers in a fight. Like she actually actively sets off a sprinkler so that it's confused by the water noises hitting the ground so that she can move more freely. I just like that they split off all these stories and we just keep cutting from them. I felt it was that the tension was increased because we were watching three different people in three equally tense positions.
It's done really well how like they have these three different sort of like they are scenes. I was gonna say, like, if there's a better word for it, like the fact that like there's tension in them. There's three different scenes running concurrently, Dan, cutting between them, and the way it's all done and pieces together is so well done. It's really good.
As well, I don't know, just super quick before I ask you a question, Dan, there's a bit where, because we're all Lost fans, the bit where they get on the island and the little village looks exactly like Dharmaville on the island. Oh my god. Because in Lost the houses are yellow, but these were white. It was the same. It's the same.
Very
filmed?
vibes.
Maybe it was filmed in
Same set.
Hawaii.
No, it's not filmed in Hawaii. It doesn't look like Hawaii. Oh my god. I was sat there like, it's Lost, the back of the island. So yeah, somebody's been watching. John Krasinski's been watching Lost.
He's been watching a lot of Lost, playing a lot of The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Been having a great old time in
Whacked
lockdown.
it all in a movie, yeah.
I think that's why I'm not too interested in this film, though, because it just seems like I feel like it has there's an extra level of depth to these films for some reason. Like, I don't know if it's about the performances. You've got some good actors in there. It seems to take itself a bit more seriously. It's a little bit more of an adult film, different themes and what have you going on, as well as being a bit of a monster film. I feel like that's kind of the appeal and what it's going for. But yeah, like, it does sound a lot like Last of Us, and even down to the setting, the post-apocalyptic kind of thing, the struggle for survival, the little stories, and then you've also got the big story of, apparently saving the world, right? Cillian Murphy's trying to... He has some information that could stop this.
It's the daughter has some information, and basically in the first film, John Krasinski, her dad, builds her a sort of hearing aid. But she figures out that when the creatures get close, however it is that they, because they have these sort of like flaps that they open to expand their ears and hear within a set radius. Whenever they get close to her, her hearing aid causes feedback. So they pick up a radio signal at the beginning of this film, and her plan is to head to this radio station, cut off the song that is being broadcast currently, and place her hearing aid on the microphone so that it's constantly projecting this horrendous static noise that the creatures don't like.
All right. Okay. Oh. Okay.
And because like the creatures are like super armored, so you can't just shoot them and kill them.
They move at a mid speed as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the only way they found they can kill them is to set them off with this feedback. It like sort of paralyzes them. They freak out and their head opens up, and then you can shoot them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now any radio that they can tune into the frequency by the end of the film, they can just blast them with that. I'm a bit worried the third one is going to tip over a bit into it's now they're not that dangerous, and it's a bit kind of what's the point?
That is my worry, because I feel like the third part could very well lead into we've got an idea of how to beat them now. We have this knowledge of how to take back Earth, and it might end up being a bit too large scale.
But yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised how small this film was.
Yeah.
Like, not a lot happened, and the film, in a good way, does take its time, and scenes get to breathe, and characters get to kind of take moments and just chill out, and there's less dialogue and stuff, and I found that just like, oh god, nice. It's got the pace is really good pace to it. It's not moving too fast. And this film's really small scale still. It's still only about like these 4 or 5 people. So maybe the third one will stay smaller scale.
I have
and
faith in
imply-
John Krasinski now.
Yeah.
I love the fact that like the second one is still only, I think it's like an hour 37. They didn't go right. So like we've got all this money, we can go big budget, we can go as big as we want, and they still went, but we don't need to. We're just gonna do the story that we want to tell. I do feel like they haven't gone bigger for the sake of it. I feel like whether he'd been given 100 million or 10 million to make this film, it would be the same story.
Another that was another worry of mine. Like when they announced the sequel, I was like, we're gonna have 2 major problems here. Number 1, we're gonna see too much of the creatures, and number 2, I don't know if there's much of a story to be told beyond the first one. Both of those were settled. Like both of those were sort of. I didn't have these worries about sort of 25 minutes into the film, because they managed to find like this interesting, beyond the small farm compound that they were living in story, without making it too big world and involving too much complexity in it. They managed to still make this sort of family surviving the apocalypse film, while also managing to work in a sort of save the world story. So it was a big concept, but it still felt like a small personal story. And number 2, we did see a lot more of the monsters, but I don't think it lessened their impact.
No, I'd
I
agree.
don't think so either.
It does sound to me that if if you're into films like this, it seems like a decent type of this genre.
Yeah, they're solid. They're just really solid, entertaining, good character movies.
If it wasn't for, off the top of my head, because the first one came out in 2018, off the top of my head, if it wasn't for Hereditary, I would probably call A Quiet Place my favourite horror of that year.
Oh, of that year.
I was going to say what came out.
That's
what
a
came out
claim.
that year. To check
The
what
thing
came
I'd
out
say, Dan, is I know you've missed the first one, but if you get the chance, see this film in cinemas, because it will benefit from it with like the sound and the tension and the atmosphere.
So perhaps it's personally, I'm a little bit burnt out on the whole post-apocalyptic genre. This,
Maybe,
especially after playing the
Living
Last of
it.
Us. Living it for sure. But also, Last of Us was a pretty. It's a
pretty definitive.
Experience that
Yeah,
stayed
yeah.
with me for sure. In terms of the gritty post-apocalyptic kind of zombie, whatever you want to call them, slash thing.
That's another thing that this film draws in comparison with The Last of Us. It has the same apocalyptic aesthetic. Like, as you can see from behind me, it's a lot of
sense, yeah.
it's a lot of like trees,
overgrown,
trees overcoming what was once
reclaiming
inhabited,
nature, reclaiming
nature reclaiming,
yeah,
and most of post-apocalyptic worlds, it's like bricks and rubble everywhere and fires in the background and
nuclear
stuff.
apocalypse.
Yeah, they've got that sort of nuclear grey apocalypse going on. This is a very green apocalypse,
It's
which
now,
I quite like.
I think that aesthetic though, maybe it's that, like, because I keep seeing that aesthetic. There's that Horizon Zero Dawn as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
Same thing. The whole idea of nature reclaiming the cities and all that. Maybe I'm just a little bit burnt out on that type of thing.
I can understand that, because people have gone pretty heavy on it, and I think it was because they've gone heavy on this new apocalyptic aesthetic, the sort of nature overcoming.
Yeah.
Because people got burnt out on the apocalyptic, like grey and brown, slushy dirt wastelands.
Yeah. I suppose really though that it's all just kind of like set dressing when it comes down to it, because it's about like the actual story that runs through it. I mean, you could kind of reskin this film to be a nuclear apocalypse film or some other form of like robot apocalypse film or something like that. But as long as the any form of apocalypse, but as long as the story kind of holds up, the characters hold up, it's still a successful film.
I think like different aesthetic apocalypses work for different types of stories, and this sort of small scale farmland family overcoming story wouldn't have looked right if it was like a large grey nuclear apocalypse. It works better that they're in this sort of green forest where the metal's all rusted and the buildings aren't smashed up, like the windows are gone, but the buildings are still pretty intact, but sort of dim, barren.
Not Last of Us.
Yeah.
There's one sort of like
Exactly.
element in it that they do a little bit of it in the second one, but if we do get a third one, I'd like to see a lot more of. And it's the idea of, because you've got creatures that can hear everything and a girl that's deaf, the fact they are like complete opposites, and that sort of dynamic you get from that. You get a little bit of it in the train cart when she's looking for supplies then, but that is something I'd love to see more of going forwards with this sort of world.
Yeah, I think the ending of the film definitely signified they will now be the leads. Obviously, Krasinski and the team he writes with, I don't know the credits.
It's just him.
Just him this time. They've looked at the first one, and gone, what works? It's the kids. Focus them. Have Cillian Murphy and Emily Blunt be supporting players. And I wonder if in the third one we might get a bit of a time jump, because obviously the kids have now aged two movies worth in real time, and Emily Blunt her character needs to rest. She's just given birth. Her foot is wrecked from stepping on that nail. She needs to chill out. So I wonder if and Cillian Murphy's legs ruined. So maybe a year or so time jump, maybe.
I think you're right, particularly when you think of the fact that, well, yeah, this film did come out and the kids don't look too different now. This film was a year old. This was supposed to come out at the start of like 2020. So you've got an extra year of what we're seeing. I think a time jump would maybe make sense, but I don't know if it's just going to feel. I don't know if I want it either.
I also like that neither of these films. Like, just speaking of a third one, I also like that neither of these films like feel like they've got a happy ending. There's a level of closure, and enough closure for you to go away from the film thinking, okay, I know where everyone is, but it's that sort of it's sort of partial closure, because the second film ends, all of them are like the family's split up, they're in two different places, they kind of know where each other are.
I'd say the second film stops. I wouldn't say it ends. Do you know what I mean?
Like,
the film just stops.
Neither of the sides of the family are in danger anymore, so it's got that level of closure of, okay, they both overcome the creatures that they needed to and are safe currently, but they're split up. They're still in a level of danger, because the apocalypse doesn't just end. So I like that they have this sort of. It's satisfactory closure, but also leaves you being like, well, we kind of need to see a third one just for them to at least get back to. We need to know that they at least get back together and.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question then, guys. Would you recommend this film?
Definitely.
Right? Yeah. Highly
enjoyed the film.
And like I said to you, it's not just I'd recommend it. I'd say if you are planning on watching it, go watch it in the cinemas.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a solid, fun, entertaining time. There's genuinely tense moments. The section with the water and those bells, genuinely tense. I legit thought Cillian Murphy was a goner. I thought that. By the way, he's great in the film. That was my one request. I thought, Cillian Murphy's in it. He's great. Please be great, and he is great.
He's always pretty decent.
Yeah, and he was in it way more than I thought he was, in the best way. He's like the second lead of the film.
Yeah.
So I was really happy about that, and they nailed his look. The costume department, his apocalypse. He had the jacket, a good jacket, the shirt, a rifle, hat, beard, boom, and he really suited the Silver Fox kind of whiskers kind of look.
As good as John Krasinski's beard was in the first one, I think I preferred Cillian Murphy's for the apocalyptic look. Like, John Krasinski's was so good, but it looked too nice and
Very
neat and trimmed. Cillian's was a bit like scraggly because, well, of course it would be.
Yeah, I love the sort of polar opposites of John Krasinski. Is this like very positive character who has tried to survive and provide for his family, and very resourceful, and he even in the worst of times he does still have like quite a groomed beard. His hair, he's still clearly been like getting his hair cut by either himself or Emily Blunt or someone in this apocalyptic world. Like, he's clearly been looking after himself, and then you bump into Cillian Murphy and he's got dirt all over his face. He's living in this horrendous factory that's falling to pieces. He's wearing sort of scruffy, part dishevelled clothes, clutching to a rifle with this scraggly grey beard. Like, he has been having the complete opposite time in the apocalypse. He's on the cynical, this is the end of humanity and I am giving up.
Here's a thought, guys, talking of apocalyptic films, because I just had a thought then earlier about when we were talking about Cillian Murphy. Imagine an apocalypse film set in the Peaky Blinders universe. As ridiculous as that be. Can you guys think of any apocalypse films that have been set kind of in a historical period that's not just the present kind of modern day? Like, we go back and then see an apocalypse happen, like in the past.
Like in the Dark Ages, Yeah.
I
don't know if that does exist, does it?
I quite like that. Like,
I want that.
a zombie apocalypse, but it's in the Victorian time.
Yeah.
I like that. Tell you what, there you go, Dan. There's how you make the genre a bit
Pride
fresh.
and Prejudice and Zombies. That's a movie.
I would maybe, I don't know if Ben would agree, but I'd maybe argue Army of Darkness.
I don't know.
It's from
what I know,
Deadites, which are kind of zombies, and it's medieval knights.
Let's have an apocalypse set in like the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
Gladiator times, and if you get to see some proper zombie tigers, then don't worry about any Army of the Dead zombie tigers. We got some proper, and all the other stuff that they kept at the Colosseum. It's all zombies now.
That'd be cool.
I don't know if there is any set in the past apocalypse.
How have we not had that yet?
Yeah, that does seem like a weird gap in the market.
Could somebody
Do it. Let's do it.
Someone comment in if you're listening, and if you know any movies that are set in the past but have some sort of apocalypse type threat in them. Please let us know. Film or TV show. Please let us know.
There's a huge like alternate history genre in books that I know about. Not that I've read any, but there's one that a friend of mine let me know of, and it was set in World War II, but there was an alien invasion during World War II, and I can't remember what it's called now. It's going to bug me. I think it's called the World War series or something. But anyway, these big lizard aliens invade, and the Allies and the Germans have to join forces against these lizards, and It's a little bit.
That's
It sounds.
interesting.
Yeah. But I think there's a gap in the market there. For,
I love stuff like that. The idea of like, if at this point in history, what if this had happened instead of this? Like, even if it's not always supernatural or like apocalypse.
Yeah, like what if
related.
the Black Plague was zombies or something? You know.
Yeah. Well, the
Maybe
man
it
in
was.
the High Castle. I've not watched any of you guys watched.
I
any
would
of that?
love to watch
I've
that
not.
show. Yeah, recommended it. Yeah, the alternate history.
Yeah. Alternate history is, maybe that's the next thing that people can go crazy for, the alternate history
I'd watch that.
genre.
Yeah.
James is interested, which is a good sign that this could be
I would love some like
successful.
alternate history films that just sort of cross genres. It doesn't matter what the subject is.
Almost like a what if
Yeah.
series.
Let's not, because this is a Marvel reference, isn't it?
Speaking of what if, is that a good time to segue? Have people got more things to say?
Not really. No.
We've kind of closed off. Recommended. Did a little bit
Short.
extra. So.
It's a really solid film.
Yeah.
Go watch it.
Yeah, they're
But
solid.
I think it was worth holding, like, because this was one of the big ones where they were like, we don't want to just release it while COVID is still a thing. We want to wait till people can see this in cinemas, and I think it was worth it. I'm glad they didn't push this into a home release.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree. Speaking of what if, let's fucking talk about James's favourite subject.
We're back, baby.
You know, it's been 2 hours since the last Marvel thing. So let's talk about the new Marvel Disney Plus show, Loki. The first episode has come out. We have all watched it. Of course, by the time this is out, you'll have watched the second episode, but you're going to have to deal with it.
We'll have also watched the second episode.
We'll have also watched the second episode by then,
Oh.
but this is just how it is. It is how it is what it is. So start with you, James. What do you think of the show? Were you interested in the show going in?
Yes.
What did you think of the first episode? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a really solid. I think it's a really good first episode. I think it kind of hits the ground running. It sets up a lot of stuff very early on that I'm very interested in. I like that it's, similar to once WandaVision got started. It's not just so we're just spending a bit more time with these characters. As much as I liked Falcon and Winter Soldier, it didn't do that much new and different. This already feels like, this show is going to be something a bit different, something we've not quite seen yet from Marvel. And it looks like it's making sort of big changes to the world, like it's introducing bigger elements.
Yes.
One of those which, turns out Infinity Stones, not that big a deal.
Well,
In this realm, anyway, whatever this realm happens to be.
I wouldn't say that it's not that they're not a big deal. It's the variant versions of them.
There's
Just
a
kind
bigger
of
version.
lose.
Well, it's this whole thing of like, they're powerless outside of their universe, and when you take them into the TVA, that's outside the universe. They aren't. There's ways to explain it. It's a good
It's the
joke,
way
but then there
they
is also
did it.
that. Yeah, it's also that moment of, what have I just spent the last 10 years watching?
yeah.
It's good though. I like it.
My biggest concern was like the implication of the idea of, does anyone have any real choice? Because they were telling Loki it's all on a preordained path. The Avengers were supposed to go back in time in Endgame, and I was like, time travel's very dangerous.
Yeah.
In any storytelling, ultimately it always falls apart unless you get out early. Even Back to the Future, I'm sure that falls apart. I'm just worried about this whole, you're not supposed to be here, you're supposed to do this, they're supposed to do that, and I was like, it kind of removes Tony's choice to sacrifice himself. It removes Cap's choice to do so and so to crash the plane. It's supposed to. Peter isn't supposed to be Spider-Man. He happens to get bitten by the spider. It kind of. I just worry about the implications of the TVA existing. While I enjoyed the episode, regardless.
I do think that has heavy implications on the past, but I think that the main reason that they chose to state that is because. We are about to get the multiverse torn to shreds, and the TVA are about to have a great heaping mess on their hands with variants. Because, if Spider-Man No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness are gonna live up to what we expect from them, then I reckon that the TVA are about to have about 18 different Spider-Men
Yeah.
running about all over the place.
Loki's got a lot on his
I
on his
love
plate.
the bit. Yeah, I love the bit where like it's in that whole like cartoon thing, and it's essentially a bit of an exposition dump of how this world works.
Jurassic
but you know, we
Park,
kind of yeah, so Jurassic Park with the
Yeah.
Mr. like the Dino DNA guy.
It's a great way to do exposition there, that type of thing.
Yeah.
It was
And it's
certainly definitely a sort of reference or, you know, a nod to Jurassic Park, 100%.
Gave me Fallout
I like
vibes
it.
as well.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, I can see
Kind of
that.
vibe Fallout.
That's,
But it's when like there's literally a line where they're like, oh, and if stuff got too crazy, the multiverse would break out into madness. I was like, oh, I wonder which film they're trying to set up with that one. Like, there's so many buzzwords in
There
such
would
a
be
short
no
amount of
way
time.
home. And it's get it?
that leads like nicely into one of the major things that I was really happy about when it came to this episode was the aesthetic.
Yes.
I loved the world and the soundtrack and the way that everything was crafted, because it all felt very like 60s to 80s sci-fi without being like that sort of ridiculous level of in your face, oh look, we're doing 60s to 80s style sci-fi. It wasn't, I wouldn't go as far as calling it subtle, but it had that aesthetic without kind of throwing it at you.
Yeah. I thought it was quite funny. Yeah, they make it, you know, time travel is very big concept, very broad, very grand. But it's all very beige, and it's very, it's all very like nonplussed to them. It's still very corporate and very 9-5.
It's very there's a lot of bureaucracy,
Yeah.
isn't it? I was
Absolutely.
getting a lot of Brazil vibes from the bureaucracy.
Yeah,
Obviously, with the aesthetic, not quite the same, but like
Lots
that
of
idea
paperwork.
of lots of paperwork, lots of people just doing these like faceless bureaucratic jobs, you know, stamping, dotting the T, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, you know.
The lowercase J's.
But yeah, I'm like really intrigued by this show. I think probably more so than I was WandaVision. I wasn't
Wow.
particularly fussed by Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I mean, I feel like that was a good show. I didn't really watch it, but I feel like it was a good show for what it was.
You might actually watch this show, Dan. That's high praise.
But I liked WandaVision because it was doing something a bit different, and it was quite clever and a bit meta and a bit sort of interesting. This, I'm getting a similar vibe. It's doing something weird, and I like it, and I don't quite know what. And it's becoming a little bit meta, and it's becoming a little bit self-referential. And you have the whole idea of like the timekeepers, right? The timekeepers are the main kind of antagonists, or whoever they are. Maybe not antagonists. We don't know. I like the idea. Yeah, I like the idea of like them as being like the showrunners, and it's going to get really, really meta and really kind of self-referential in that way.
I've got a theory I'd like to put to you guys now. I just want to put it out there in case it does happen. It might not, but I've got a feeling there's going to be a bit, maybe penultimate episode or mid-season point, where there's this whole thing of maybe like there's the timekeeper's office, and the whole time the TV are like, you can't go in there, you can't disturb them, and eventually Loki's like, no, I need to talk to them, burst through, and it's an empty room, and they either never did exist or they've stopped existing and like actually doing anything a long time ago, and it's just been this corporation sort of having to piece things together because there isn't this overboard watching over everything anymore.
Or Kevin
I've just
Feige's
got-
in there, and they just
Yeah.
That'd
fully,
be sick.
fully
It's just
break
Kathleen
it.
Kennedy, Kevin Feige,
Russos
and
are in there.
Yeah.
Tom Hiddleston's in there. They just go off the rails with it.
that would be sick.
Really, it's a very intriguing concept. I agree with Christian in the aesthetic. I really like the aesthetic. I liked the fact that they just open these weird doors to different times. I didn't anticipate that. Like, we have a scene that takes place in like the 1500s, right? I think it's in France.
Yeah,
Where the
The
church.
church, yeah.
And we have a scene that takes place in
Mephisto confirmed. Mephisto confirmed.
I think there's a scene on, is it a plantation? Or it's some kind of, it's in America around that era, I think,
I have no memory of
1850s.
It looks,
Yeah,
the ending of the episode.
Oh, where the guys get killed by Loki at
Yes.
the end.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, right. The
And I
wheat
really-
field thing. Yeah,
I really
right.
like this sort of time hopping aspect where, you know, where Owen Wilson is just kind of at will going into these different time zones, and there's that one scene with him and the little kid where he's just sort of trying to calm this kid down, and he gives him some bubble gum, or someone's giving him some bubble gum. I think the variant gave the little kid
the
some
variant's
bubblegum,
giving
right?
him some modern day
I
chocolate
always,
or something.
I just like that idea of like the modern day, present day clashing with like the past. Yeah. I think this could be cool. It could be a cool TV show.
I just wanted to say, like, really liked Owen Wilson in this as well.
Yeah.
As
Of course.
it's Agent Mobius, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah. Mobius and Mobius.
I'm actually very it seems like him and Tom Hiddleston are going to have some pretty good on-screen chemistry, and I'm excited to see how Agent Mobius and Loki are going to interact as this series goes on.
I think they're going to be really good
Yeah,
together.
I've seen a video of Tom Hiddleston doing an impression of Owen Wilson. So that will happen. He will just do that to his face. That's going to happen. He'll go, wow. He'll do something to him. I find it kind of glorious. It happened in Endgame as well. How relevant and important Thor: The Dark World is. Like
Well-
they made like the worst film quite important. Like,
It's people are saying this. They're kind of using these shows to do a bit of damage control. So it's
Yeah.
like WandaVision kind of fixed Age of Ultron and sort of did bits to improve that and make it like, oh no, it's not as bad as you think. And like they're trying to do that with Dark
I
World
really
again.
like that idea. I really like it when you should acknowledge your faults, and regardless of the quality of the film, it's canon and you should move forward.
Yes.
The Star Wars prequels happened regardless whether you liked them or not. The sequels did not happen, but the prequels did happen. And so you should acknowledge that those planets and races and outfits and looks exist.
It's fine. They're not canon anymore. But Ben. They've been completely written out. I had to call you Ben, then tried to correct myself, call you Dan, then realised you're not Dan, you're Ben.
It's the glasses, I know. It froze, No one recognises Clark Kent. Am I Dan? Yeah.
I thought they did a really good job in this one of sort of catching Loki up. So it's like, it's not the Loki that we've seen in like Ragnarok and at the start of Infinity War. It is 2012's Avengers Loki, but they've kind of done a nice job of like getting him into a midway point of like sort of fast tracking the development he does by showing him all the stuff that he went through.
in,
But he's still the same
45
Loki,
minutes.
so
They
it's quite a
just
nice
showed
way
him
of doing it.
the Marvel films on Disney Plus, didn't they?
The entire episode was a bit of like an exposition dump and setup. But it was
still
like
entertaining.
it was a super interesting exposition dump. I was never watching this and being like, oh, here we go, exposition, just being I'm just having all this information dumped on me so that I understand later episodes. I was like invested in how they were giving me the information.
The only thing that kind of disappointed me about this episode is the whole BD Cooper part, because I love that. I
DB.
loved.
DB
Is
Cooper.
it- What did I say?
BD.
I thought it was BD.
No, it's
DB.
DB.
Oh, because I've been saying DB so many times, and I thought I was. Either way, Cooper, that guy. I loved the idea that they were going to sort of use this show to be like, oh, some of those unexplained mysteries in our world. It was Loki jumping through time.
Yeah, the grassy
Yeah.
knoll.
I'm a little bit disappointed that they just go, oh, it was a younger Loki on a bet.
Yeah,
Done,
It's just
moving
a
on. I was
throwaway
like,
scene.
I
Yeah.
was hoping this was going to be a real thing, but it's still a good scene. I still like that idea. I was just hoping they were going to do it more.
I think it's
because
because they kind of maybe led you down that path in the marketing, like in the trailer. I think
Yeah,
it kind of
that's what I
gives
mean.
that vibe, and they've lied to you, which is appalling.
They've done the Marvel thing and they've tried to throw you off the scent. But we know Mephisto's going to crop up, so they can't fool us.
Actually.
And I like the idea that they brought him in to stop himself, because it's like why would they bother wasting their time with Loki? And it's like, because the variant is some other version of you.
Yeah.
Whether that be
Well, because this is the other thing, like that a few people have pointed out. When he's going through all of the like paperwork, and you see his file, it officially says, I think it's either gender or sex, and it says fluid. So officially, canonically, Loki is gender fluid.
However, but if the internet hadn't have said it, you would never ever notice it unless you paused it, which is
No, but,
I
like, it's
think
still a thing
still
that they're-
not quite good enough. I think if you're gonna say it,
It's not yet.
have your character be it, You need to show it or tell it, not have it be on a piece of paper that you'll blink and miss it.
Well,
Well, I
still
don't
a few
know.
episodes left.
You know,
I
true.
wonder whether this show could end with the main Loki being Lady Loki. I wonder whether...
Yeah.
I know that Tom Hiddleston has said he does enjoy playing this, but every actor's got to get to the point where they're like, I want to go do other things.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they use this as Tom Hiddleston's out, which
Who's
they're doing with a
Lady
lot of the
Loki?
main characters at the moment.
Who's Lady Loki? Sorry. Chris.
Loki, but a lady.
Just that Loki, literally Loki, but a lady.
Long
but a
story.
lady.
Yeah, long story short, in the comics, I think Loki was dead. There was a body that was supposed to be made for Lady Sif, and his soul inhabited it instead and went on as Lady Loki. There are other ones where I think,
Right.
he's just... Well, they have just changed from male to female sort of on a whim when they feel
I
like it.
think
Because
it'd
they're a
just be
shapeshifter.
I think it would just be like maybe just a multiverse in a different multiverse
Yeah.
variant. Loki's just a woman.
I think that's what the variant will be, but I wonder
Yes,
whether
yeah.
they will then use it to then go... Like, Loki that we know goes, oh, the idea of me being a woman. Yeah, why not?
yeah.
And then just changes.
It's like Doctor Who.
Yeah.
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 I think it's...
Which I feel like this show is going to
that-
be a bit like.
Yeah, I think this
But
is
better.
what they're doing. I think this is what they're doing now in Marvel in general. They're like setting up the next wave of characters, but keeping them kind of familiar. So it's like,
Yeah.
oh, Natalie Portman's going to be Thor now, and we're doing this show called Ironheart, where Riri Williams, a character that is going to be introduced, and she's basically going to be the new Iron Man, and Florence Pugh seems to be being set up to take over. Maybe not as Black Widow, but as a new sort
She
of...
could be Black
Yeah,
Widow.
they might just give her the mantle Black Widow.
Sam is now Captain America.
Sam is now
like-
Captain America. They're setting up a new wave of Avengers, but keeping them familiar.
Yeah, it's kind of a bit like rubbish there, that, innit? In a way.
Why?
Because it's sort of like, oh, it's just Captain America, but a different guy, or it's just Thor, but it's Natalie Portman now, or basically just everything Christian said. It's like,
But
it's
this
a bit,
is a mainstay in
it's-
comics. Like, mantles have always been passed along. There's, like,
Yeah.
what, 5 Robins now? There's been multiple Green Lanterns.
I thought there was 6 Robins.
Yeah, no, Dan,
I don't know.
You want
I don't know the
different
exact
characters,
number.
Dan, don't you? You want new teams.
I know,
not
They're
Well,
new,
old
I
they're
don't
new
know.
characters. They just, like it's
It's
not
just
like
safe.
someone is now Steve Rogers. It's like they're the mantle of Captain
It-
America.
Yeah, yeah.
It's safe in a way that, because I've already gone on record and said I'm a bit worried for Marvel in Phase 4 and all that. Like, it's safe, and maybe that's a good thing, but it's also at the same time not safe. It's a weird one.
Yeah, I think it keeps it keeps people interested because they're like, well, I know who Captain America is and I know who Thor is.
Yeah.
But I think it gives them the chance to do something different with these characters because, like,
Maybe.
Sam Wilson as Captain America isn't going to be the same as Steve Rogers. He's
Yeah.
going to do different stuff. He's
Yeah.
going to build his own version of Captain America. Same with Florence Pugh. She's not going to be exactly like Scarlett Johansson. They're not going to be the same characters. They're just
Yeah.
going to be under the same names,
Unless it's a face swap.
unless
It's
it
ve-
is a face swap.
It's a bit mad, though, isn't it? Like what are your predictions then for the sort of final episode? Because in my head, I feel like this show is going to completely wreck in terms of the whole multiverse, everything. It's going to blow everything wide open and then set up where Marvel is going properly into the future with the
Yeah.
multiverse colliding.
Could do.
I feel like that's going to happen.
Well, I
don't think that.
that was the interesting thing with them saying that it's a single strand multiverse, because the fact that it is all one single strand but is somehow still a multiverse means that everything is very close together and the strand can break.
I think it's the idea if you've got all these different worlds happening, but they're on one timeline, so time
Yeah.
is still running at one, but you've
Linear,
got all these different
yeah.
worlds going on inside that. I don't know if they're just sort of trying to mislead us, because, they wouldn't come out and say, you can skip the show if you want, but they have said that of the of the Disney Plus shows so far, this is going to be the one that has the biggest impact on the universe. But, that could just be them drumming up support for it.
Yeah.
I also think that the finale of this show won't necessarily be the finale, because I think out of all of the shows, this is the most likely so far to end up getting a second season.
Because there'll always be variants.
Yeah,
change.
Yeah.
I reckon this will end with setting up like No Way Home, and it's going to set up the TVA popping up in the films. But I do think that this show is going to continue as Loki and Agent Mobius being a team of
Could do.
variant eliminating agents for the TVA, and future series are essentially going to be like Doctor Who, with them
Well,
traveling to different areas and trying to sort out variations in the timeline.
Basically, the plotline of Legends of Tomorrow, really.
Although, like
quite like that show.
one thing that I would say against that is that I feel like this is almost the most standalone TV show as well. It looks like it. There is a definite leap in quality, I would say, in terms of.
This
like,
is why
Got
they've
the most budget.
got
Yeah.
the most budget.
Yeah, but you can really tell, like, the quality of the writing's better, the quality of the actual aesthetic, the CGI and everything. It looks like a film. It doesn't look like they spared any expense.
I'd say they all look like that.
No, I don't know, maybe, yeah, but there's something about this that's like, it's almost like it's like we even have a scene where there's where Loki disappears with the Tesseract into the wormhole or whatever, and then it's like it is literally does feel like a continuation of that scene. It feels like a film, whereas like WandaVision kind of did and kind of didn't. Well, Falcon and Winter Soldier, it felt like a film, but it felt like a lower budget film.
They had areas where
This feels like this feels like an alternate like look into the same film. It looks like an alternate like pathway in Endgame, and I feel like like it could just be standalone because of that. Like they pour so much money. If they go down the route Christian was saying, where it's like, you know, Agent Mobius and Loki week after week kind of thing, it might lose a bit of that magic.
I don't think it's going to be a week after week thing. I think they'll keep it to like 6 episodes at 40 minutes. Or they might end up dropping season 2 down to half an hour, but having like 9 episodes like WandaVision style. But I do think that this is a series that will end up continuing. Because I think it's an excuse for them to trial doing some of the sort of lesser mainstream characters. You know, they can be like, oh, we've got a variant in this world. It's a variant of Thor, and we need to go.
Howard the Duck, you know.
We need to go we need to go take care of this Thor variant, and they turn up, and it's Beta Ray Bill, and they can do these more sort of unique, weird, and D-list characters, and just make them variants and have them appear for an episode.
So I think I don't think the show. I'm still not convinced they can fully rely on having the shows having this much impact at the moment, because they're just the first set of shows.
Maybe.
So I think maybe like it'll have some impact, but maybe still you could, in a sense, skip it. In the sense, like when you watch Multiverse of Madness, the one that will really change things up, or No Way Home. You know, like in theory, like you could skip WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier, and kind of pick up the gist if you just watch the movies. I imagine
Probably.
And I wonder if I think it won't be as big as we think it is.
I don't know, that when I saw them all there though, like on Disney Plus, when I saw, you know, you can have the option to just watch MCU stuff and click, and it's all there in a nice collection. All those TV shows are set nicely on the timeline with the films. It's like all one thing. It's like Marvel are making no distinction almost between the TV shows and the films. It's all the same story. It's just now they're passed into this new medium, and I just got this sense that like they really know what they're doing. Like they really do know what they're doing, and they've got this plan. And like I said the other week, I'm worried, but for some reason, just seeing that, especially now Loki's come out, and seeing the quality of Loki and everything, I just feel like they're proper on the ball, like they're ahead of the game, and I don't know, it's interesting.
They've not skipped a beat, and they clearly know where they want to go with it.
Yeah.
Like when Kevin Feige was like, "Oh, this is going to have the most impact," as soon as I finished the episode, I was like, "Right, he said that because." The TVA are about to become a big deal. The TVA sought variations in time, and the timeline single-strand multiverse is about to be absolutely split into many, many strands. And they're maybe going to be antagonists, maybe going to end up working with remnants of S.H.I.E.L.D. or S.W.O.R.D. or whoever. Now, I'm not sure what side they're going to be on yet. I suppose we'll see where the Timekeepers and the TVA stand as this series goes on. But I'll be interested. I don't think they're just going to be contained in Loki. I think the TVA are going to start popping up in at least every film where the multiverse is like a major factor.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it's great you were saying, Dan, about the planning. Like, it is crazy. Like, I'd more than anything, I'd love to see where they plan it, like the room when they do it. Like when they release that trailer, and at the end of the trailer, it's like a minute of all the titles of like 10 new films. They've got 10 like they've planned like 5 years in advance. They know all the stories and they've got the script. I want to be in the room. I want to see it so bad.
Because it's like when you see how when they started to do Infinity War and Endgame, they have those like massive whiteboards and they sat like, right, here's all the characters we've got, here's all the plot lines we need, and we do that. Like it must be a nightmare to organise.
It appeals to me on that level, though, how intricate everything is, and it is impressive how they have pretty much managed to tie everything together and make this whole cohesive story that has spanned, over 10 years now. What is it? When was Iron Man? 2007?
2008.
2008. It's a long time.
13 years.
And it's like, you see how often people get it wrong. Star Wars got it wrong, DC consistently gets it wrong. And
Dark Universe.
Exactly. Well, pretty much every cinematic universe has kind of fallen flat, really, broadly speaking. Especially like these big lofty ones, sci-fi kind of fantasy cinematic universes, they've sort of fallen flat. Marvel has always consistently been just that one step ahead of everyone, and I feel like for some reason it just kind of clicked a little bit when I saw what they were doing. Like when I just saw all their little TV shows there with the films, and it's all part of the same thing.
It's because, and yes, this is a sentence I'm going to say. Star Wars, Marvel always have an end game in mind.
Oh.
They always know where they're going. Like they started Iron Man 1 back in 2008 and they were like, we want to get an Avengers movie. But we're not going to rush it. We know that in a few years Avengers is where we want to end up. They got to Avengers. Avengers was massive. It was like super big event, and then they were like, right, they didn't sit down after Avengers and go, right, where do we go from here? They knew that they were going to get to Avengers, and a couple years prior were like, so where do we want to go after Avengers? What are we going to do? How are we going to get ourselves to Avengers 2?
Literally, the Avengers post-credit scene, it sets up Thanos. We didn't even see him on screen for another 2 years, and he doesn't even then properly appear for another 6 years.
Exactly, This is why I think I wouldn't give him as much credit in the early days, to be honest. I think they made their movies and they went, if it goes well, we'll do that. And we'll get.
I do think there was an element of if it got
Thanos and think about it later.
I think they knew where they wanted to go. I do agree with you. I think they weren't. This is exactly what's going to happen. But I think they were like, we want to do the Infinity War saga, so we'll tease Thanos. If people respond well, we will go ahead with our plan. If they don't, then we'll do something different.
I would argue that Phase 2 is less planned than Phase 1. Phase 1 seemed quite planned of, we want to get to Avengers.
I disagree.
Phase 3 is like incredibly meticulously planned to get to Infinity War and Endgame. I think that Phase 2, while they had a plan, there was a bit more
Phase 2, where they start really leaning into the Infinity War. It's where you get most of, they start introducing more of the Infinity Stones. And literally in Age of Ultron, they do the whole, here's the story of the Infinity Stones. Well, not they don't do the story, but they essentially go, Infinity Stones are a thing, we're doing them. Like Phase 2 really starts ramping up, I think.
I just can't remember what's Phase 1 and Phase 2, so...
Phase 1 is those first...
I know, I didn't say tell me. I didn't know. You don't need to tell me.
But anyway, yeah, I think they really know what they're doing, especially in regards to like, doing things like making the new Thor like a woman, and making Loki gender fluid, and bringing in just a more diverse cast of characters, and just things like that. They're really sort of they've got the finger on the pulse in a way that no one else really does, and I just feel like they know what they're doing in the end. Really.
DC are trying so hard to replicate what Marvel has,
Bless
but
them.
they just haven't found that they don't know what it is that is making Marvel work so well, and
I think it's that they don't have their Kevin Feige. They
Yeah.
don't
They don't have a
have the head
creative-
guy to sort of
Yeah.
shape it all and be like, right, okay, all these different filmmakers, you go make your
Yeah.
solo films, but here's the main vision that we need to get to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Star Wars have that. That's why it's so frustrating. Dave Filoni is the guy, and
Yeah.
John Favreau as well. It can be the guy. Like it is kind of working. The Mandalorian's working, and
That's the stuff that they're
Clone
involved
The thing
Wars
is,
is working. The Bad Batch is in there. It's not as good, but it's in there.
I think now they've realised that the fans want Filoni and Favreau to be the Feige
Yeah.
of Star Wars. So going ahead, I do reckon that
Mandalorian,
Filoni especially will have more involvement in the films.
I
Hopefully.
hope so.
Look what happened when Kevin Favreau got involved with The Mandalorian.
Kevin Favreau.
Not Kevin Favreau, John Favreau
The
got involved with
ultimate
it.
being Kevin Favreau.
yeah. But like, look what he did with it. Look what they did when they went, right, let's apply the same kind of logic, the same kind of character archetypes as we do to Marvel. Mandalorian, he could almost be a Marvel character in a weird way. He could almost be like, he's a bit of a superhero. He's a bit of like a badass kind of guy. He's got special moves. He's got equipment. He could almost be from a Marvel.
He's a
film.
Guardian of the Galaxy. Baby Groot's Baby
Yeah.
Yoda. He's got the ship like the Milano and the Razor Crest. Yeah.
But like what they did in terms of, they also brought back older characters. They brought back Boba Fett. They brought back, we found out it extended the universe. It made the universe feel bigger, but it also it made Boba Fett more of an interesting character. We saw him as an older guy. He's not got his mask on anymore. He's got his own story to tell, but he's just kind of with Mandalorian, and it just works, and it's cool, and it has the same sense of the universe being a big thing and a meaningful thing.
They brought back
Those sequels
some-
never did,
They brought back some bloke dressed as Luke Skywalker.
They brought back some kind of CGI abomination that looked a bit like Luke Skywalker. But in theory,
If
though,
you squinted your eyes really tightly, it looked like Luke Skywalker.
Don't look at the TV. It is Luke Skywalker.
but that one scene, like the failings of that are not in the writing, because the writing of that is really solid. The actual what happened in the plot is really solid there, I think, and brilliant. Everyone loved that aspect.
Absolutely.
It's just on a technical level, which we have to forgive to an extent.
Yeah.
No.
But yeah.
When YouTubers can do better than Disney and their big show and their big
that
scene,
is always weird when the
I will not
YouTubers-
forgive them. Especially when they have a guy who works for Disney called Sebastian Stan that looks like a young Mark Hamill and could have popped in for the day.
Nah.
They can't be forgiven for that.
That was such a good
Face.
moment. It could have literally looked like a PS2 character, and I would have been
It does
fine
look like a
with it.
PS2 character.
It doesn't. I want about literally if it had about 5 pixels.
If it had the
Even
Hagrid,
if
the
it-
Hagrid face.
Yeah.
That'd be.
It could have had that, and I still would have been okay with it. It was so good.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
I said
But
to
it was
Dan,
also bad.
Me and Dan talked about it. I like the positive in that was that at least the guy, whoever the man that performed it, moved like Luke. He kind of fought similar to Luke, like the way he uses the Force with his hand. It is like Mark Hamill, the way he does it. So at least they got that bit right.
Just the writing all the way through The Mandalorian is pretty, especially series 2, pretty solid. I've got to say, pretty on point. Just the little things they got right, like that scene specifically with Luke, where it's all those what they call dark troopers, right? Just one of them just completely messes up the Mandalorian, almost kills him, And you're thinking, Jesus Christ, these things are completely unstoppable, like psychotic machines. And then Luke Skywalker turns up and just kills them all, like effortlessly. And it's like, oh, it's a Jedi. Oh, it's a Jedi. Of course it is. It makes perfect sense. And you get that sense of like the power, of how much more powerful Luke is. You don't get any of that in the sequels.
Or the prequels.
All the prequels, but especially the sequels where we don't need to go. I won't go on. It's just the power of little touches and little bits of like good writing like that make a film like a tangible thing rather than just the next Disney thing that's out, And
I don't know. Have we spoken about this on the podcast yet? I don't know if we've recorded one since J.J. Abrams came out and went, probably should have had a plan for the sequels, shouldn't I?
Well, I can't fully blame him because he was.
It's not his fault.
He was hired to do the one film, but even then they really should have. He was hired to do the one, and then he walked away, and then he was given the scraps. Of episode 9 and what to do with episode 8. But yeah, man, even still, Jesus Christ.
I like that at least.
Someone should have had a plan.
I was gonna say I like that they've let him say that. Do we think they did let him, or do we think he's just said it and like
he has
Disney can do now?
Contract with them. Yeah. He's doing his own thing. He can be honest now. It's God.
Yeah. The moment the sequel trilogy died is that the mom joke in The Last Jedi. I remember sitting in the
right at the beginning of it, at the opening.
Yeah, I remember when the page in what is it? Page in
Poe's trying to talk to General Hux when it's Poe just flying around of their Star Destroyer or whatever. And I can't remember what he says. He's trying to page Hux.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, is Hux there? I can't hear him. I'll wait for his mum or something like." Yeah,
he makes some really.
I don't remember there being a mum joke.
No, but like that. It's in the first 5 minutes of the film. Maybe go back and watch it. And it's like I remember sitting in the cinema, anticipating the second Star Wars film after the Force Awakens, and then they made that mum joke, and I was like, "Oh no, oh no!" You can't whoever's written this is. It was Ryan Johnson. I think he wrote that film.
Yeah.
It's like you can't.
I like Last Jedi.
I know, James. I know you do.
That's a podcast for another day.
Yeah.
Well, the best, a great Red Letter Media line in the Last Jedi review. Mike goes like, their $4 billion franchise. They just gave it to some guy, and he just wrote a script, and they just gave it to some bloke, and he had all the keys to the franchise. He had all the say. Such a great line.
I don't know. I think in the end, probably Ryan Johnson had other ideas for that second film, and Disney kind of went, "Nah, make it like Star Wars."
Well, his original plan was to focus heavily on the casino heist.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh well, we've kind of got a solo movie being made that's a heist movie. So could you not do the casino heist?" And he was like, "Well, I'm gonna do the casino heist, but I'll make it a lesser point." And he made it such a lesser point that it's an entirely pointless side story that didn't need to happen.
Literally pointless, man. It actually is literally pointless because regardless, Holdo goes into the ship anyway. Anyway, because it's literally pointless.
Anyway.
I can't. Oh,
anyway, Loki was pretty good, wasn't it?
I think it's the best first episode of the Marvel shows we've had so far.
There we go. I would agree.
I would probably agree as well.
I did really like the first episode of Falcon Winter Soldier.
It's a really good episode. I think first episodes on their own. I think it goes Loki, Falcon, WandaVision.
I thought WandaVision was pretty good.
WandaVision's way down.
I really enjoyed the first episode of WandaVision.
I still liked it, but I think the episode on its own wasn't as good as the other first episodes. Yeah. I think the show was great.
Maybe, but then we did get a second episode of WandaVision straight, like they were back to back, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Both really. Whereas with this one,
super quick. I'll give James and Christian 5 minutes to potentially talk about Nobody or The Hitman's Bodyguard, because we're talking about all the new releases. Things are opening back up. The cinema's back on. Is Nobody and The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard worth the watch. Your time starts now.
Short and simple, Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. If you like the first one, you'll like the second one. Pretty much the same sort of humour and style, but a better dynamic. Enough said about that one. Nobody, it's good. It's really good. Go watch it. It's clever. It's a good action film.
Yeah.
Like, it's something a bit different. It doesn't break the mold by any means, but I really like it. It's kind of like John Wick meets Taken, but in the best way possible, and it's funnier than I thought it'd be.
Yeah. I was really scared that because it was the John Wick writer, it was just going to be like, oh, it's just John Wick, but with Bob Odenkirk. But it is like, while it is like John Wick and it is like Taken, it stands on its own legs. It doesn't lean too heavy on being like those. And Bob Odenkirk is great in it. It's got some great action scenes. It is like, it's funny. The story's entertaining, and it's got Christopher Lloyd in it, which.
What?
Spoilers, Christian. Look at Ben's reaction. He's robbed him at that moment now.
One of the biggest reactions, robbed. I wish I didn't know Bruce Willis was in Split and it was an Unbreakable sequel. If I didn't know that, I would have flipped. I would have lost it. Sorry.
And now you spoiled it for everyone who's not seen Split. So well done, Ben.
So yeah, guys, if you enjoyed the episode, please give us a like, give us a little subscribe, rate us on iTunes, and give us a little follow on iTunes and Spotify on the audio podcast. We're doing well in the audio podcast, are we, Dan? Give the David Fincher podcast a listen. It's very, very good. Give Alien 3 Time of Saw Trash a watch. It's also very, very good. Give Norbit a Time of Saw Trash a watch. The title race for first place of our videos is hot, and Norbit is on the tails of the first ever podcast, so please give it a watch. And we will see you next time, right, guys?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, we will see you then. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.